Hey guys, today I found a new post from a user named Gay Guy Gaming. The title is Desperately Need a New Car but Boggled Down by Debt. Basically, the post goes recently graduated from college and excited to start a new job in 2 months that pays about $80,000 a year. However, I'm in a bit of a bind because I need to buy a new car soon as I will be moving to a new place. Unfortunately, my credit score has taken a hit. It was somewhere in the 700s, but with focusing on study, the income decreased, and now it's 590 due to the utilization, not so much because of the history. Um, on the bright side, my expenses will be relatively low with $500 for rent and maybe $500 to $1,000 for other expenses, as I will mostly be eating at work during weekdays. Additionally, I have a credit history, blah blah blah. I'm not quite sure which is the best course of action to tackle my credit card debt and improve my credit score. I'm thinking of getting a balance transfer, lower my interest rate, aiming to decrease my utilization, things like that. Blah 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 blah. The debt, $17,000 in credit card between two cars, 14,000 on one, 3,000 in the other, 4,000 in student loans, which the employer will take care of, which is great. Assets, 10,000 in investments, receiving 5,000 in signing bonus. Edit. I will be purchasing a used car, not a new car, non-negotiable as the weather does not permit public transit for my commute several months out of the year, and I can't show up either sweating or in snow. Um, a few things here is that the one thing that just stands out to me is your debt. You have $17,000 in credit card debt, which is actually it's a lot, but it's really manageable, especially since you have $10,000 in investment and $5,000 bonus signing bonus. So that tells me that out of the 17, you can immediately pay off 15,000 of it right off the gate. Um, Now some people might say, "Hey, I gotta keep it in the investment, blah blah blah," losing money. But especially since investment side is actually not guaranteed in any way, right? But then interests are guaranteed. Yeah, you gotta pay shows your 24% interest rate and 27% interest rate. You're not gonna be able to get, maybe it'll take a lucky jump, but I'm guessing the chances are you're not gonna get a 27% return on that $10,000 investment that you have. So I would definitely say, get that taken care of immediately. Sell the investment. I know this is not the most popular thing. May not be the most popular thing, but definitely sell the investments. Take that 15,000, pay off the debt as fast as you can. That leaves you with only 2 grand left in the debt. Um, Also, you mentioned about the transfer of your credit card balance to 0% thing. I'm learning a lot lately from Dave Ramsey and guys about paying up the debt and psychology of money and stuff like that. Our spending habits and saving habits and this sort of things. And the biggest thing that I'm taking away is that it's really, if you want to like count everything, which I tend to do sometimes, and I'm sure a lot of people tend to do. Uh, you know, no matter what, I guess the 0% would be great. But you do have to keep in mind that it's not really 0%. You got to pay 3% upfront and 5% upfront to get it transferred over. Um, and with the 590 credit score, I'm not sure if they will actually want to approve you for the balance transfer. But also, too, even if they do, by getting a transfer, from whatever it is that you're paying now to that, the difference in the interest and savings that you'll be getting, because you gotta pay the 3% upfront, 5% upfront, versus even if it's 24, 27%, which I would suggest paying off the 3 grand first, right? That way you only have 2 grand left on that balance. But either way, at 24%, either way, the interest that you would have to pay on that 2 grand for the next a month, maybe, or two, it's very very minimal, and the difference between the two, I'm guessing it's like $10, $20, maybe $30 if that. Now again, if you want to say, hey, yes, $10, $20, $30 means a lot, I want to save that much, by all means. But I think the psychology behind it is that the reason we tend to do that is because once we get a transfer, it's a 0%. So it would be easy for me to say, well, I don't really see the benefit of me paying it off faster or earlier, because I'm not gaining any additional thing by paying it off earlier, now that it's already transferred. And anytime I think a debt structure does not not permit, but make things more favorable for you to pay up the debt, I just don't know if that's a good option to get into, whether it's a 0% or whatever it is, if there's no benefit. So like, for example, if you have a regular loan, but it has a clause in there where even if you pay it off early, you still have to pay for all the interest that you would have to pay anyway. I just don't know if that's a good loan for anybody to get into, in which I'm sure there are a lot of loans. A lot of regulations and things like that out there that actually stops that sort of things to happen on most of the loans, right? I'm sure there are other unregulated loans and stuff like that, but I know that most of the loans nowadays really encourage you to pay it off faster. That way, you end up paying less in interest. It just doesn't make any sense. So I definitely would think that's one psychology thing behind it that I think that can be addressed or really thought about. The other thing is interesting is that you mentioned that your rent or housing will be $500, which it sounds like a great deal. I don't know where you're planning on living and stuff like that. And I don't know if that has anything to do with your credit and stuff like that. Maybe you're thinking about living with your significant other and stuff like that. Maybe I don't know, but the $500 rent arrangement sounds really, really great, especially given the credit score the way it is. So make sure that's the case. Now, the other interesting thing that you kind of mentioned about is the purchasing of the used car, right? And I think one of the questions that you asked is like, how much can I afford, or what price range should I be looking at for cars? And one of the things is that you mentioned that because of the credit score, the interest rate won't be as favorable, I think is what you said. I agree with 100%. Like, obviously, having a low credit score that won't help. One of the things to keep in mind is that, one thing I always talk about, or when I think about at least, is that getting an interest rate and borrowing money, obviously, the lower the rate, we all know the lower the rate, the better it is. However, once you get past okay, let's sign up for this loan, the interest rate doesn't matter as much in my head anyways. What matters is that while you're financing it, I think it's the interest rate makes up your interest amount that you pay. But at that point, once you're committed to it, you don't pay on that interest rate, you pay it on that monthly payment. So like when it comes to cash flows and saving money and all of that stuff, and of course, again, we all know the lower the rate, the better it is. But once you sign up for that, that's what it is. So I wouldn't care so much about the interest rate as much. I don't know how it's coming out, but it's really more about the monthly payment that you're able to afford, right? And so, in my thing always on the car side is that from the bring home money that you're bringing home, I think it's gonna be like half a week. So like the maximum you can afford for housing would be the full week. So whatever it is that you're making, whatever it is for the whole week that you're bringing home, can be the maximum for your housing expense. And then for the car expense, whatever you're bringing home, half a week will be the range. So in my quick calculation, let's see if you're making $80,000 a year in a week divided by 52, right? What is that? $80,000. Let's see. Do the math real quick. 80,000. Calculator. $80,000 divided by 52 gives you about $1,540 a week, right? That's the gross. And if we multiply that by 0.65, that should give you about $1,000 per week. And so, according to my calculation, the maximum housing allowance that you can have is $1,000, which is for you're bringing home for the week. And then I would think that $500 per week for half a week, so $500 per month on your car payment will be the maximum that I would say you can afford, or you should take the debt on. Now, one thing that I want to point out is that just because your housing expense is only $500 per month, that doesn't mean that you can or you should take out a payment for $1,000 on your car, because that's a completely separate, categories, separate type of expense and stuff like that. So I wouldn't mix the two. So it's not a $1,500 for both car and the house. It's the $1,000 for the house, $500 for the car, right? And so that's what I want to talk about. But as far as paying off the credit card debt and stuff like that, after you paying off the $15,000 up front, you would only have $2,000 left. So I'm sure you can pay that off very, very aggressively as soon as I'm guessing, according to this calculation, you can pay it off in the same month, right? Now, a few things that you're not mentioning here, you're not talking about, is obviously the emergency fund and all of that. But given the fact that you don't, you've been working all this time, and then you're able to kind of pay off all this debt within the first month and stuff like that, which I don't know how often you get paid and stuff like that, but it seems like you should be able to kind of pay this off all in, or like the first month that you're working, or the first full month worth of paycheck that you get, you should be able to pay it off. So unless something ridiculous happens, I believe you should be able to kind of take care of all of that. And as far as the timing of the purchasing of the car, which is also important, it does sound like you have a car, because you didn't say that you need to buy a car. You said you need to buy a new car. New car for you, it definitely sounds like it's a used car, but it's a new car for you. So if it is that you are trying to get a replacement vehicle of what you have now, I would try to delay that as much as you can, as long as it's drivable and stuff like that. Because what a lot of people mention, especially here, and of course I'm sure same thing with Dave Ramsey, which is the part that I really unfortunately disagree with Uncle Dave, is that I just don't know, buying a $4,000, $5,000 car makes sense, just because of the liability issue, just a peace of mind and things like that. And of course, I'm not a mechanic by any means, and I can't work on my car on my own. So, I don't want to be rely on. I mean, of course, if the car breaks down, you're gonna have to do that anyway. Even on the new cars break down, right? Even the certified pre-owned cars get breakdown and stuff like that. But the probability or the chance, or at least for, again, the peace of mind that I'm gonna get by getting something new or newer, is tremendous for me, versus buying another car, and it's just a couple $1,000 and it breaks down on the side of the road, and you need it for the commute and stuff like that. I just don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense. But I also want you to, the reason I wanted you to delay is because that way it actually gives you more time to save, right? So not to necessarily say, hey, I'm gonna go from, if my budget was only, let's say $30,000, because my interest in the time and all of that stuff. But well, not that I saved $10,000, now I'm gonna go up to $40,000. That's not what I meant by doing that. Of course, we all know, obviously, lower the payment, the better it is. And I stick with the payment route only because, and it's totally up to you how you want to get it, your finances, set up in this way. But of course, nobody wants to, talk about, financing the car for 7 years, 8 years, 10 years. Of course, the longer the time you go, the more you can afford in the price of the car. But that means you're also paying on the car for 7, 8 years, which means the amount of interest that you have to pay, right, is just significant. And that's another thing, is a lot of times people are concerned so much about the interest rate per se, but they don't really think about the amount of time that it takes for you to pay the car off, right? And so if you actually do the math between, if you got a 5% interest rate on a car loan for 4 years versus if you got a 8% loan at 7 years, or the other way around, 7% at 4 years and about 4% at 8 years, which I know this doesn't make sense, but if that were to happen, the difference in the two may be, very surprising. It depends on the amount of, loan that you're getting and stuff like that. It's just the time is a culprit. So like you'll see the tremendous amount of difference between the two, if the rates are the same and stuff like that. It's just really, so keep those things in mind, whether it's the monthly payment on the new car or, transferring the credit cards. I just don't know if it really makes sense to get that where transfer the cards over. Definitely save as much as you can towards the down payment of your car, so you borrow less, so you can actually help you pay down the new debt as fast as you can, as much as you can. And once you commit to it, obviously, even though, let's say you got a payment of $500 per month, after the savings, after doing this and that, you can actually be aggressive in paying that off as well, on the new car loan as well. So you don't have to pay $500 per month. You can pay $1,000, $1,500 to pay it off completely. So those are my thoughts. Hope this helps. And then thank you.